Have you ever heard of a king who had the gift of wisdom but whose harem of 1,000 women led to his downfall? This is the story of Solomon, the wisest, richest, and most powerful king in biblical history. He made Israel great, but he had one weakness: women. This desire for women clouded his judgment, and although Solomon had everything to be the greatest king of Israel, he ended up being the worst. God granted Solomon a gift of wisdom, and he made Israel a powerful kingdom full of wealth and trade relations with distant realms. But his harem was a lost garden made up of 700 wives and 300 concubines, each from a different corner of the known world. Princesses from Egypt with mysterious eyes, ladies from Moab, women from Ammon, Edom, and Sidon, each with their own stories and dreams, were entangled in Solomon's magnificent court. Solomon's harem became a labyrinth of political intrigue and fragile alliances. With each union, Solomon sealed pacts that ensured peace for his kingdom, and each woman brought a piece of their homeland, turning the palace into a living tapestry of mixed cultures. But these unions were a double-edged sword, as they also brought the gods and practices of their country, challenging the pure faith of Israel. So was this harem of 1,000 women the reason for his fall? In this video, we will explore Solomon's story from his incredible legacy of wisdom to his downfall. Was he really able to control the demons? What were the consequences of his death for the kingdom of Israel? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any incredible historical stories. Let's start in the ancient city of Jerusalem in the year 990 BC, where a new prince was born. His name was Solomon, which means peaceful and friend of God. Solomon was conceived from the relationship between Bathsheba and King David, the brave shepherd who defeated Goliath and whom you've surely heard about. But Solomon's story began marked by a dark secret: the adulterous relationship between King David and Bathsheba, who at the time was married to Uriah the Hittite, a brave soldier in David's army. In a desperate attempt to hide his sin, the king sent Uriah to war, ordering the other soldiers to leave him unprotected on the battlefield. As expected, Uriah met his death in combat. However, God's eyes were not blind to the king's actions. The death of David and Bathsheba's first son was seen as divine judgment, a punishment for the committed adultery. But amidst sadness and repentance, God showed his mercy. He forgave King David, and from the reconciliation, Solomon was born, a peace offering between heaven and earth. The young prince grew up under the tutelage of a wise and enigmatic man, the prophet Nathan. While King David dealt with the affairs of the kingdom, Nathan became Solomon's mentor and guide, shaping his mind and spirit with profound teachings and divine relations. Nathan, with his penetrating gaze and calm voice, saw an extraordinary destiny in Solomon. Through his eyes, the prophet perceived the spark of wisdom and the promise of greatness that burdened in the young prince's heart. But then Nathan began to weave a bold plan. The prophet knew that Solomon was not King David's firstborn, and there were older brothers who would claim the throne. Nathan also harbored a dark secret. He knew the full story of the adultery between David and Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. With cunning and determination, Nathan decided to use the knowledge to his advantage. In private audience with King David, Nathan began to plan the idea that Solomon was destined to be their heir to the throne. With carefully chosen words and prophetic visions, the prophet conceived the monarch that choosing Solomon's was God's will. Hence, bit by bit, David began to see in his younger son the promise of a glorious future. When David fell ill and death approached, he gathered the necessary strength to reaffirm his decision and named Solomon as his legitimate successor. However, the young Solomon, only 15 years old, knew that his reign was born under the shadow of threat. His father's warning words echoed in his ears, reminding him to be vigilant against potential enemies who might conspire against him. And so, with a resolution that surpassed his age, Solomon embarked on an extensive purge to secure his power. Joab, David's chief general, who had supported Adonijah's claim to the throne, was one of the first victims of the purge. Thus, Solomon made it clear that no one was safe from his ruthless justice. Then he eliminated Adonijah, cutting off any possibility of conspiracy against him. But the young king did not stop there. With a strategic vision that surpassed his age, Solomon set out to strengthen the military forces of the kingdom and embarked on forging an alliance with the powerful Pharaoh of Egypt. Thus, he took the Pharaoh's daughter as his first wife, thereby sealing a pact that promised to strengthen ties between the two nations. The union with the Egyptian princess, wrapped in silk and exotic jewels, was a success. Unfortunately, Solomon thought that uniting with powerful women from other realms was the fastest way to grow his kingdom. This thought would haunt him later. On a quiet night, while the young King Solomon lay resting in his bed, he plunged into a deep and revealing dream. In this dream, God appeared before him with a resonant voice full of grace, So God said to Solomon, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Solomon, with a humble heart, aware of the immense responsibility resting on him, responded, "You have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful for you and righteous and upright in heart. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern these great people of yours?" Solomon's request pleased the Lord, who recognized the purity of his heart and his desire to rule with wisdom. God, pleased, replied, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be." Thus, Solomon awoke from his dream, carrying with him the most precious gift a ruler could desire, the wisdom and discernment granted by God himself. This divine encounter marked a turning point in Solomon's life, enabling him to lead his people with justice, compassion, and unparalleled understanding. Solomon's wisdom became legendary, attracting people from all nations who longed to hear his words and learn from his knowledge. As it is written, "And all the kings of the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear the wisdom that God had put in his heart." The wisdom was reflected on a memorable day when two women presented themselves before King Solomon, both claiming to be the mother of the same baby. With tears in their eyes and trembling voices, each narrated her version of the story, clamoring for justice and recognition of her motherhood. The baby, oblivious to the dispute, lay in arms of one of the women while the tension in the throne room became palpable. Solomon, with the wisdom God had granted him, listening attentively to both women. Then, with a penetrating gaze and a firm voice, he issued a decree that left everyone present astonished. "Bring me a sword, cut the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other." A sepulchral silence invaded the room as the attendees held their breath at the king's shocking proposal. Then the true mother of the child, with her heart torn and love overflowing from her being, exclaimed, "Ah, my lord, give her the living child and do not kill it." In contrast, the other woman, with unsettling coldness, accepted the division of the baby. At that moment, Solomon revealed his final verdict: "Give the living child to her and do not kill it. She is his mother." The king's wisdom had triumphed, unmasking the truth and protecting the life of the innocent. The true mother, moved by unconditional love, had preferred to renounce her son rather than see him die, while the impostor had showed her lack of empathy and maternal affection. The news of this extraordinary judgment spread rapidly throughout the kingdom, and the people of Israel were amazed at the divine wisdom that dwelt in their king. As it is written, "And all Israel heard of the judgment that the king had rendered, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice." This episode became a lasting testament to the wisdom and discernment that God had granted Solomon. His ability to administer justice with insight and compassion earned him the respect and admiration of his people, consolidating his reign and leaving a legacy that would transcend generations. However, the people still clung to ancient traditions. They sacrificed in high places, on makeshift altars under the open sky, as the temple dedicated to the name of Jehovah had not yet been erected. Then Solomon set out to build the first temple of Israel, but at that moment he did not have the means to achieve the great temple he envisioned. So he embarked on a mission to forge a strategic alliance with Hiram, the king of Tyre, a city renowned for its construction prowess, wealth, and natural resources. Solomon sent messengers to Hiram with a bold proposal. "You know that because of the wars waged against my father David from all sides, he could not build a temple in the name of the Lord his God until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side, and there is no adversary or disaster. I intend therefore to build a temple for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord told my father David when he said, 'Your son whom I put on the throne in your place will build a temple for my name.'" Hiram, recognizing the divine favor that rested on Solomon and eager to forge a profitable alliance, responded with enthusiasm, "Blessed be the Lord today, for he has given David a wise son to rule over this great nation." Hiram agreed to provide the finest cedars of Lebanon, abundant timber, and skilled craftsmen to aid in the construction of the magnificent temple. Thus, the construction of the temple began, with stones cut and polished in quarries far from Jerusalem. Tens of thousands of men worked tirelessly, forming a harmonious symphony of labor under the guidance of skilled forgemen and master builders. Solomon's vision began to materialize as the temple rose majestically on Mount Moriah. It was adorned with intricate carvings and precious metals, reflecting the glory and sanctity of the house of God. The interior was decorated with gold, silver, and precious stones, creating an environment of unparalleled opulence and splendor. Upon the temple's completion, Solomon summoned the leaders of Israel, the elders, and the heads of the tribes of Jerusalem to dedicate the house of the Lord, the Ark of the Covenant, the The sacred chest that contained the tablets of the Ten Commandments was brought from the city of David and placed in the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, beneath the wings of the cherubim. As the priest withdrew from the holy place, a cloud filled the temple, symbolizing the presence of the Lord, and the glory of the Lord filled the house of God. Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord, raised his hands to heaven, and delivered a prayer of dedication. He acknowledged God's faithfulness to his promises and sought his continued favor and protection over Israel. The king's voice echoed through the temple as he implored, "But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, the heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain you. How much less this house that I have built? Yet have regard to the prayer of your servant and to his plea. O Lord my God, listening to the cry and to the prayer that your servant prays before you this day." The dedication of the temple marked a momentous occasion in Israel's history, symbolizing the unity and faith of the nation. Solomon's reign reached its zenith, characterized by unparalleled wisdom, wealth, and prosperity. His fame spread far and wide, attracting dignitaries, scholars, and seekers of wisdom from distant lands. The Queen of Sheba, a monarch of great renown, journeyed to Jerusalem to witness Solomon's wisdom firsthand. She arrived with a great entourage, bearing gifts of gold, spice, and precious stones, and she posed challenging questions to test the king's knowledge. Solomon answered her inquiries with ease, demonstrating the depth of his understanding and the breadth of his wisdom. The Queen of Sheba marveled at the magnificence of Solomon's court, the splendor of his palace, and the grandeur of the temple. She proclaimed, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, but I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told to me. In wisdom and wealth, you have far exceeded the report I heard." However, as Solomon's fame grew, so did his appetite for wealth, power, and pleasure. The king's heart began to stray from the path of righteousness, and he succumbed to the allure of foreign women and their gods. Despite God's explicit warning against marrying foreign women, Solomon took wives and concubines from nations that worshipped idols and false gods. His heart, once devoted to the Lord, became divided as he built altars and shrines to gods of his wives. His pursuit for political alliances through marriage led to the introduction of idolatry within the kingdom. The people, influenced by the king's action, began to worship foreign gods, forsaking the true God of Israel. God's anger was kindled against Solomon, and he declared, "Because you have done this and have not kept my covenant and my statutes that I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servants. Yet, for the sake of David, your father, I will not do it in your days, but I will tear it out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away all the kingdom. I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of David, my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen." Solomon's later years were marked by turmoil and unrest. Adversaries rose against him, and the kingdom he had so carefully built began to fracture. His son Rehoboam inherited a divided and weakened realm. Upon Solomon's death, the kingdom of Israel split into two, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. The unity and prosperity that Solomon had enjoyed were scattered, and the people of Israel faced the consequences of their king's apostasy. Despite his tragic downfall, Solomon's legacy endured through his writings. The wisdom literature attributed to him, including the Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Songs of Solomon, continue to inspire and guide generations. Solomon's story serves as a poignant reminder of the dangers of straying from the path of righteousness and the importance of remaining faithful to God's commandments. Thank you for watching our video. If you found it interesting, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future stories. Feel free to leave your comments and let us know what other stories you would like to see. See you next time.